In this segment, we'll be discussing the National Stock Number Part Numbering System, or simply the NSN Part Numbering System. If you work with the U.S. government or any of the United States allies, or if you work with major aerospace corporations like Lockheed, Boeing, Sikorsky, or GE, this segment is for you. We'll be discussing how NSNs are used, how a National Stock Number Part Number is constructed, and we'll be discussing how you can use this system to make your job easier. In particular, we'll be talking about how the NSN numbering system is very helpful in part number cross-referencing. I'm Jerome Pepin, CEO and founder of WBParts. We sell aircraft parts and mill standard hardware into the defense and general aviation marketplace. All right, let's get started.
Let's start with an example of a simple 32-cent rivet. This part number can be purchased from all fast fasteners using AF3213-6-02. It can be purchased as simply a -2. Cherry Rivet sells it this way. They also sell it this way. Huck Fasteners has two part numbers. The mill standard part number is M7885/2-6-02, and the National Aerospace Standard is shown this way. So the government recognized they were totally being overrun with manufacturing part numbers and a different numbering system was needed. So given that all of these part numbers reflect this rivet, all the same item, they determined that they would come up with a set of technical characteristics that would bind all of these part numbers together and accurately reflect this rivet. They would come up with a common reference, and that would be the national stock number itself, and that any time that the federal government needed to purchase this item or seek quotes from vendors or transfer material from the Army to the Navy and so on, they would refer to it via the common reference, the national stock number. This nut can be purchased using all of these different part numbers. So the government again used the technical characteristics as a method to bind all of these together. And in the case of a nut, the technical characteristics largely revolve around material, measurements, and all the physical characteristics associated with this nut. So this nut has this set of technical characteristics, and you can read along that we have thread quantity per inch and the material, and it's a hexagon head nut, and we have various physical dimensions and lubrication that all bind these manufacturing part numbers together. NSNs have nomenclatures or names associated with them. The nomenclature used is kind of surname first. So my name is Jerome Pepin. Surname first would be Pepin, Jerome. So in the case of these rivets, it's rivet, blind for blind rivet. In the case of this nut, it's a hexagon extended self-locking nut. So that's the way the naming convention or the nomenclature for NSNs is constructed. Well, national stock numbers have a structure themselves. The first two characters are the federal supply group. Grouping number of 53 is for hardware and abrasives. We sell a lot of aircraft parts in their supply group 16. The first four characters is the Federal Supply Classification, or FSC. In our example, 5320 is hardware, but it's a specific kind of hardware. It's rivets. 1620 is a specific type of aircraft component, and in fact, it's landing gear. The next two characters are the country code. 00 and 01 are for items that are manufactured in the United States. The last 9 characters are the National Item Identification Number, and that's the portion of the national stock number that creates uniqueness. The first 4 characters kind of describe the category of the part, but the last 9 characters are what cause the part number to actually be unique. So we have a number of examples here, and what I'd like to do with the first example is I'd like to click on this hyperlink here and take you out to the Federal Supply Classification grouping to give you an idea of how that information is constructed. We're at the Federal Supply Group listing, and let's jump down to Supply Group number 53. We have our hardware and abrasives, and you can see above it is measuring tools and hand tools. So pretty much anything that the government buys is in this listing. I'll jump up to group 16. We have our aircraft components. 17, aircraft landing. Within the supply group, we can find a grouping for food. There's a grouping for clothing. So anything that the government purchases and stores, there'll be a supply group for it. I'd like to now click on this hyperlink and take you out to the Federal Supply Classification, or some people call it Federal Stock Classification, and give you an idea of how the first 4-digit set of information is constructed. The Federal Supply Classification provides us with that subgrouping we spoke about earlier. So let's jump down to 5310 and I'll give you an idea of how this is constructed. So there's our 5310 right here, which is our nuts and washers, and above that we have studs, bolts, and screws. Going down we have rivets, fastener devices, and so on, O-rings. And you can see how this is put together. So let's jump up to the 1600 series where we have our aircraft parts. And let's see what we have. So we have aircraft propellers, helicopter blades, landing gear, wheels and brakes, and so on. So this subgrouping gets us down to a finer level of detail with regard to parts that the government will stock. I'm going to use the WBParts website and jump into a national stock number. So I'm up in the parts search area of the website. I'm going to type in my national stock number and go to that page. And we can see our FSC, our NIN. The NIN is what uniquely identifies this part. We have our technical characteristics, but before that we have all the manufacturing part numbers that are crosses. So these guys are all crosses for this national stock number, and all of these manufacturing part numbers share this common set of technical characteristics that have been assigned to this national stock number. So we have material composition and style designators, the self-locking nut. We have a lot of dimensional information, again, that all these parts will share in common. We also have some information regarding restrictions and control that the national stock number database provides for us. We have shelf life information, information on demilitarization should the government or an OEM want to sell some of this material, liquidate it, scrap it, whatever. It gives us a lot of really good information specific to this particular device. Something rather unique to the WBParts website is we also have part images, which can be really fantastic in giving you a visual representation of what this part actually looks like. I want to show you how to compare national stock numbers and manufacturing part numbers against one another. So I'm going to go back to our original rivet example, and I'm not going to go with the full part number. I'm going to go with the part number root, and you'll see why in a second. So under this part number root we have a number of suffixes in 02 and 05 and so on. I want to compare these first two blind rivets side by side. When I do a national stock number compare, it's the national stock number that has the technical characteristics assigned to it, and all the manufacturing part numbers share these set of technical characteristics. So we are letting you select the part number, the manufacturing part number, and really that's there so in case you want to print this off, or could be that you really recognize the part not so much by the national stock number but by the manufacturing part number. So we can list it all here, and I can see based on the technical characteristics where these parts differ and where they're the same. So I can see the fastener length is different, the head height is the same, the shank diameter appears to be the same, and all the way down through this list I can see where my part is the same and where it's different. I can even add a new part number. I can type in this section, I can type in a national stock number or a manufacturing part number, and let's go with this part. I'm going to rerun my compare, and the system is showing me that there's multiple NSNs that start with this BAS16, and it's asking me to pick the specific national stock number of interest. I'm going to come down, rerun my compare. I can eliminate this column if I want to. Why don't I go ahead and do that? I've got my 3 part numbers there, so let's just get the 3 on the screen. So there's the BAS16 that I just added. Let's re-identify my manufacturing part number by clicking that. And now I compare these three guys side by side, and I can see again where they're different and where they may or may not be the same. So this compare tool is an absolutely fantastic tool that we use here at WBParts all day long. We released this capability on our public website about a year ago, and to date we have had 125,000 users come in and use the tool. I just became aware of that statistic the other day, and that's really what prompted me to put this tutorial together, because it's an absolutely fantastic tool and we really do want to bring it to the masses. It makes your job easier, it allows you to cross-reference parts, it allows you to identify potential substitution parts using technical characteristics as a way of comparing things side by side. The reference materials used in this presentation, we've used the WBParts website for the NSN lookup to review technical characteristics, part number cross-referencing, and of course the compare tool. On the WBParts website on page fsg.cfm we have the Federal Stock Classification Group. At fsc.cfm we saw the listing of the Federal Stock Classification listing. And this concludes our training session. I hope you found this to be interesting and to be useful, and I hope that you agree with me that the National Stock Number Part Numbering System rocks. Thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next tutorial. Bye-bye now.